Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm here to talk about the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Season 4, or Part 4, that released on Netflix on December 31st, 2020, specifically Episodes 1 and 2. That is episode titled Chapter 29, The Eldritch Dark, and Chapter 30, The Uninvited. So I'm recording 6 a.m., same night it released, or same morning it released. For me, it released at 3 a.m., so 3 hours afterwards for the two episodes. So huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episodes or any of the previous seasons, please go do so first and then come back and see what I have to say about the episodes. Otherwise, my video reminders are up on screen. Take a moment to remind yourselves of those. For your first genuine reaction, since this is very different from my usual recaps, since I usually have a week in between episodes made available to me, the way I'm going to do the Sabrina episodes is I'll watch the two on Netflix, then I'll do my recording to you guys, and then I'll go watch the next two episodes, then do the new recording for those two, continue on with the final two sets, and then I'll edit the videos all in one go, and then you'll get your 4 videos scheduled out. So it's going to be a little different for me I want to, but it's going to be very different for me not to binge watch all 8 all the way through, which I can easily do in a sitting, like it's just 8 hours. But it's going to be very different if I'm taking notes and if I'm actually pausing to record. So that's going to be something different for me this time around. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to talk about the timeline, episode reminders, opening scene. I'm going to talk about different storylines I picked up on as I watched the episodes. There might be some commonalities between them. We'll find out along the way. We'll talk about the last scene, some tidbits that occurred. And then we'll talk about relationship statuses. Then we'll get into my most shocking moment of the episode. We'll get into my top favorite moments of the episode, my top peeve moments for the episode, then my random questions. And then after both episodes are talked about, we'll talk about episode 1 and then go into episode 2. Then we'll talk about the predictions I have for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'll go watch the episode 3 and 4, and then I'll come back and record, and we'll see where we go from there. So I hope not to go more than 20 minutes. I'll put a timer. Let's see how that works out. But let's go. Also, just a huge heads up. If I mention any other series along the way, that's also a spoiler in itself. And I do apologize I don't know how in-depth I'm going to get if something pops in my head. Because sometimes things come to me as I record and that don't come while I'm making the note. So just heads up for that. So let's talk about episode 401. Timeline-wise, I couldn't tell how long it's been since the season finale before, since 308. I don't know if it's been a week, if it's been a month. I want to safely say it's been a month, just because of how much progress we see with Queen Sabrina in Hell. But there's no actual indicator in the episode how long it's been, or I might have missed it. I don't know. Again, it's really late for me right now. So there's that. Episode reminder is the fact that this is the first of 8 Eldritch Terrors. We're going to deal with a different one in each episode. So in this episode, we dealt with absolute darkness. So pretty much it's... they target the light, and they prey on people's darkest fears or deepest fears. And Zelda kind of explained it like they read her mind, and then they just projected all those fears and doubts back at her to where it felt very crippling for her. It kind of reminded me of the Dementors from Harry Potter, in a sense. Just from their presence and like the feeling she got from being in their presence. That's kind of why Dementors came to mind. But they do take on the shape of these very old school miners, completely covered head to toe. And it's when they're unmasked, it just looks like they're a pile of dark smoke that's keeping them upright. But they can still do telekinesis, at least. Like, they can do a lot with just being smoke. So that's something there. Now, the opening scene of the episode is Father Blackwood scribbling on some papers in his new Pilgrims of the Night church in a tent. And then he breaks the fourth wall, speaks into the camera, and starts talking about the first Eldritch Terror and how there's a prophecy that will bring about the darkness. And then it cuts straight to a group of scary miners emerging from the tunnels. and then they kill this man they come across with telekinesis. Now, I personally would have preferred if we took out Blackwood's scene and just opened the season and the episode up with seeing this group of miners emerging from the tunnel. And then we think like, okay, maybe it's human. And then the moment they killed the man with telekinesis, like, oh, this is something supernatural. And then like, this is what the issue is. But then we don't know what it is at this point. When we get Blackwood's introduction, like, and breaking the fourth wall to us, he kind of already tells us who these groups of miners are. And I kind of don't like that. Because now it's like, well, it kind of takes away from the discovery our characters get from Ambrose when he reveals, oh, this is what the miners are and stuff like that, instead of kind of trying to figure it out with them. So that's the opening scene there. I kind of would prefer it if we didn't have Blackwood as the opener, but that's just me. But moving on, we'll talk about the Eldritch Terror specifically. So we have it really taking off when Ambrose investigates the 3 murders and does a quick necromancy spell with Nick and Sabrina, and they find out that it was the cause of the Eldritch Terror, full of darkness, absolute darkness. This leads to Ambrose and Sabrina astral projecting to 1949 during the mining disaster, which confirms the identity of the terror. And then because of this, they have a plan that they need the Coven to provide protection, which Prudence recruits. They need help from the Fright Club, which Nick goes to recruit them for to help containment. So they were meant to lure the terrors that were embodying the mining uniforms and contain them at the carnival so that they're not out there using their telekinesis to kill other people. And then meanwhile, Ambrose was going to help with Sabrina as she and Queen Sabrina go into the darkness and try to attract them to their morning star light to trap them into this big bulb thing. So that requires Sabrina having to go to hell to recruit her other half, essentially. So they do end a lot of troubles along the way, but the 2 Sabrinas do end up pulling all the darkness into this massive light bulb. I don't know what they do with it, though, afterwards. But apparently they did something. They trapped it when it was something that couldn't have been fathomable before or even thought of for some reason. So there's that. So with Sabrina's storyline specifically before the Eldritch Terrors came around, she was dealing more with her loneliness and the doubt of whether or not she picked the right life for her, because she was having doubts whether or not the life of a Spellman was what she wanted versus the life of a Morningstar or being queen in hell. It got to a point where she was creating this Bloody Mary scare for her group of friends to kind of come back together to kind of conquer together, because she felt like the 5th wheel, since Harvey and Roz are together and Theo and Robin are together and Sabrina was left out. So she kind of creates this ruse to bring them all back together, but because of the cunning, Roz sees through it and kind of busts Sabrina for it later on when it was just between the 2 of them, and kind of reaffirming that, like, as friends, you don't have to lie to get them all to hang out, kind of a thing. So that's something Sabrina was dealing with before the Eldritch Terror became an issue. Then we have the Academy. So the Academy has Zelda rededicating the Coven and the Academy to Hecate. So now her Coven, they have a new statue. They seem to have a lot more people to be part of their Coven. And then she put this new tradition of naming a maiden, a mother, and a crone, the 3 different phases of Hecate. And she gave the roles to Prudence, Hilda, and herself, respectively. I was kind of surprised that Prudence got it, because I think everybody, even Sabrina, was expecting Sabrina to get the maiden card, just because she would theoretically supposed to be the youngest of the Coven. And it would have seemed more fitting if the 3 phases of Hecate in this first ceremony was actually 3 blood relations, if anything. Or I guess technically Sabrina's not blood related to her aunts. So that's a moot point now that I'm making. So anyways, there's that. And then we have Father Blackwood's storyline. So I guess you can kind of say the antagonistic part of the storyline. So we have him and Agatha starting the Pilgrims of the Night Church to kind of as their stage front to help the Eldritch Terrors. they get the interest of Miss Wardwell, who actually still remembers that the Spellmans are witches. I don't know why Sabrina's spell to erase those memories didn't work. But we have Father Blackwood giving the message to embrace the darkness, which proves to be useful and truthful to Miss Wardwell, which kind of solidifies her new faith in them. And then we are also told through this storyline that there's 8 Eldritch Terrors, which I think I mentioned beforehand, and each one is more terrifying than the one before it. Now, the last scene of the episode is the fact that we get both of Sabrina. So Sabrina Spellman, who wears the black headband, and then Sabrina Morningstar, or Queen Sabrina, who wears the red headband. They are having their own little dance party in Spellman's bedroom with Salem kind of like standing by. So they got a little bit of a victory party, having defeated the Eldritch and actually being in each other's presence again, when beforehand they were told by Ambrose, or Spellman was told by Ambrose, that they could not risk the time paradox even more. So there's that. Tidbits, though, that I picked up in 401 was the fact that Fright Club isn't a band anymore, or they claim they're not a band anymore, and Harvey claims that he and Roz are writing some songs of their own. So there's that. We have Ross having a petition going around to implement a sex education class at the school, since apparently they're the only school that doesn't have one. So we know that's going to pop up later on in the season for sure. We also hear, well, here's something I'm tricky about, because this is kind of contradicted in the second episode, but Queen Sabrina tells Sabrina when they're in the darkness that she lied about being happy as a queen, because it was something she felt like she had to say as a queen. So, but that gets contradicted in 402 when she claims that she is happy with her life. So I don't know if that was truthful or if it was from the presence of the darkness surrounding her. So that's something. And also we find out that Queen Sabrina seems to have forgiven Caliban, while Sabrina Spellman, the witch, has not. She seems to be against their little forgiveness changes between them. So there's that. We'll get to that in a moment. So ship status, though, we have both Billy from Baxter High and Melvin from the Coven both asking Sabrina out, and she denies it at first, but then by the end of the episode, she's asking both guys out Friday night to different movie nights, or different movie showings that same night. So that's something. We also see Nick and Prudence being together. It's kind of implied that they're seeing each other now, but with those two, you don't really know, since they kind of were before in season 1. Not too sure, but there's that. Harvey and Roz are still together. Theo and Robin are still together, as always. We get Zelda and Mambo Marie still, they're still exploring things between each other. So at least it wasn't a one-time thing. So that's something I'm really happy to see stick around. And Hilda seems to be excited for the prospect as well. And then another thing was Queen Sabrina and Caliban dancing and flirting with each other, which just gives into my most shocking moment, was the fact that we have Sabrina Morningstar and Caliban not only dancing together, but enjoying each other's company and the closeness already. I wasn't expecting that the first episode back. I mean, I saw snippets of it in the trailer, but I didn't expect this so soon. So that was a shock right there. But that was also the only scene we saw of Caliban in the episode, so that's something there. But let's move on to top favorite moments. First off is I love Ambrose explaining the time paradox issue with Sabrina, because Ambrose is just like, his logic and like him needing to explain that again was just needed, and to explain it differently to make it make sense was just perfect. Ambrose is like favorite over here for me. So there's that. Another favorite for me, though, is the fact that we got the moment in the darkness when both Sabrinas were hearing the chants from the Hecate Coven, giving their support when they thought that they were all alone and being consumed by the darkness. So having them chant along to their new Dark Mother and seeing that unity from the Coven, from the two Sabrinas, and then from Ambrose as well, it's a really great moment. especially in an episode that was filled with the constant reminder of how alone Sabrina Spellman is in a world of couplings of the sort. Like, I didn't need to be reminded of that constantly. So there's that. And then another favorite moment, if you haven't gathered already from how I've been talking or from my part 3 video, if you haven't checked that out, card above. But Queen Sabrina dancing and flirting with Caliban. A welcome shock. I didn't expect us to jump right into that so soon. So, like, favorite. I kind of wish we got more, but I'll just keep replaying that one scene over and over again, just to watch the body language and see, well, how far have they gotten? Like, really, how long has it been since she got crowned and let him free and stuff, you know? So there's that. Now my peeves. If you see my part 3, you know why I got peeved. But in this episode, first one was Sabrina manipulating her friends just to reignite Fright Club. I mean, the fact that when she was lying about the Bloody Mary case, I really don't want to say that name more times now, but when she lied about that case and when that whole thing was happening, whenever none of her friends were looking, Sabrina's look on her face was just like, no, that irks me. And then it just kept me thinking, well, like, if they find out that she lied about this case, then she runs the risk of, like, the whole cry wolf thing. Like, if something really bad happening and them not believing her. So when Roz looked suspicious at Sabrina after they banished the ghost and it exploded on Harvey, and then Roz just looked at Sabrina in a suspicious way, I was like, that was a peeve. That was a favorite from my peeved moment. I just wanted Roz to call Sabrina out on it. I wanted her to, like, really double down on, like, this is wrong. You shouldn't have to manipulate your friends to kind of hang out with them, kind of a thing. It just seemed like you don't do that to your friends. You be honest to them and stuff. So that was a peeve right there. The fact that she was even thinking of manipulating them, it sit wrong with me. So there was that. Another peeve that I did have was the fact that Sabrina Morningstar went into the darkness to do the spell first, and then it was when she was failing, then Sabrina Spellman went into the darkness to help her. That was a peeve for me because the whole purpose of them getting Morningstar to help them was so that both Sabrinas can go into the darkness together to do the spell. Not that they needed the Queen Sabrina to go in first and then have Witch Sabrina go in. No. Originally, the plan was for both of them to go in at the same time to deal with the darkness. So it made no sense to me why the Queen went in first, did the spell, and then when she failed, then the witch went in. It just made no sense to me. I was like, that was not the plan to begin with. You pretty much sent in the Queen to get slaughtered, kind of, and then, or to check, like, oh, you go ahead first, and if the coast is clear, then I'll come on in, kind of a thing. I was like, that wasn't the plan to begin with, and you're doing it this way. It's just like, I kind of get how they did it. The thing I would have preferred is that, like, because I know they did it so that Sabrina Spellman would come in to find Sabrina Morningstar overwhelmed by darkness, and she needed to give that speech and how, like, they were in this together, they weren't alone, they were still loved and all that, and giving that speech that really contradicted all the doubts and fears that the darkness was plaguing them. So I understand they needed that, but I don't understand why they couldn't have that while both Sabrinas were already in the darkness, and then all of a sudden they are both hearing the same thoughts, and then they were both slowly crumbling under that pressure, and then Spellman says, like, no, like, don't listen, or Spellman tells Morningstar, who's maybe crippling a little bit more under the overwhelming thought that, like, no, don't listen. Like, I would have preferred that instead of her going in thinking, oh, she can't do it on her own, let me go in there to double check. It's like, that was the plan to begin with. You were supposed to go in together. So, like, that's something there. And then another peeve, it was just like, it's the message behind it. And it was just that fact that Sabrina asked out both Carl and Melvin. At first, I thought it was both Sabrinas each. Like one Sabrina asked out Carl and then the other one asked out Melvin. But then to find out, no, it was the same Sabrina that asked out the two of them. It's just like, no, that's like, yeah, I get she's dating, but that's like, you're dating, but then you're also planning the dates to be on the same night. It's like, who does that? I mean, like, I kept thinking cheater, and she hasn't even dated either of them yet. It's just like, no. I don't know, that's just a personal thing for me. It's like, I can't, if you go on that, I don't know, maybe that's just me. I don't know, but that was a peeve for me. So there's that. Now, random questions before we move on to episode 2. So random question was the fact that, 1, why is Ambrose the only one that uses a wand? Is he the only one that uses a wand? And why is that? I find that pretty cool, but like still, I want to know why. Like, is it more helpful for him or something? I don't know. So there's that. Second question. With the words that, I think I mentioned it before. I can't remember now. It's getting late. But with all the words and doubts that Zelda was hearing, did she only hear them, or did all the students in Hilda also hear them? I'm thinking that they all heard it, because when Hilda walked in, she kind of sounded very protective of Zelda being attacked with all these fears. But then I don't know if Zelda was reacting a specific way, or if she was being seen a specific way while she was under their influence, and that's what Hilda was reacting to. I can't really tell which way it is. So that's a question there. The other question was, how did the new Hecate Coven get so large? Like, where do they find all these new students? That's something. And then another question was, how can mortals also perform magic? I can understand if maybe Roz can kind of do it because of her cunning. But, like, why is Harvey able to? Why is Theo able to? I can kind of understand Robin because he is a hobgoblin. But, like, when they were all trying to contain the Eldritch Terrors in the snake charmer tent, it's like, how are some of them able to cast the same magic Nick was doing when they're mortals? Like, that makes no sense to me. So that's something there. So let's go up to episode 2. Now, timeline-wise, is that the episode actually starts on that Friday night, that Sabrina's double date night thing. So we at least know it's in the same week of episode 1. So that's a good timeline marker there. Also another timeline marker, during Hilda's speech to Dr. C, she mentions the fact, she makes it a one-off kind of a thing, where it's like, she makes a reference to when they first met, and she kind of does it flippantly, or saying like a few weeks ago or a few months ago, it doesn't matter, kind of a thing. So I had me question, like, well, how long has it been since season 1 for them? Is it still less than a year? Because I would assume that they would do another episode if it was Sabrina's 17th birthday, you know what I mean? So it just had me think, it's like, wow, that's a very fast time for relationships and stuff, like, you know? So anyways, there's that. Episode reminder, though. This is when we deal with the second Eldritch Terror, known as Vagrant of the Void, or the Uninvited. This is also the episode we find out that the terrors aren't monsters, but they're entities beyond human comprehension. We also get potential names for the other terrors, unwashed, unloved, and unwanted, sensing a theme there. But also this episode, we find out that not only does Roz get a very bad feeling from them, but she gets these very visual signals from them. And also Harvey had drawn in his sleep 8 different pictures correlating to the different terrors, which Ambrose made the connection to, and they hope that they can use the drawings to identify which terrors are coming next. So that's something a little bit to remember for the episode. Also the fact, which is kind of like, I get that the episode's called the Uninvited to match the Eldritch Terror, but this episode is the reminder of the fact that we do have a double wedding happening. We do have the wedding of Hilda and Dr. C's, or Dr. Cerberus, in this episode, but also the wedding of Queen Sabrina and Caliban, which I will be talking about shortly. But let's get into the opening scene. The opening scene starts with this very dirty, sickly beggar who pretty much pushes their cart into Greendale at night, and then knocks on the door of Lucy and her mom. Don't remember, Lucy is a little girl who got kidnapped by Jimmy Platt, that ice cream man, at the beginning of season 3. So we see that little family again. And the beggar comes during dinner. He is not invited to join them, and he ends up ripping their hearts out as retribution for that. And we find out later that he is the Uninvited. So this, despite the gruesomeness of this opening, I prefer this one, because now we're left wondering, well, who is this beggar? He's definitely not normal. You're not your normal beggar to begin with. He's definitely potential Eldritch Terror because of the fact that he ripped out their hearts while they were alive. So it leaves you more questions like, okay, who could this possibly be? How do you kind of starve him away? Kind of a thing. So I really prefer, despite the bloodiness of it, this type of an opening makes sense. Now, when it comes to the actual storyline surrounding the Eldritch Terror, we do have him visiting Harvey's garage, and instead of turning them away, Roz gets the distinct feeling of, no, we should invite him in and be hospitable towards him, which spares them their lives. And then the Uninvited goes to Blackwood's new church location instead of being in a tent. It's in an actual storefront. So there's that. But meanwhile, Ambrose does autopsy of 5 victims of the Uninvited with their hearts ripped out. And he gets confirmation from Roz and Harvey that it is indeed the Uninvited that they had a visit from the previous night. This leads to them warning the coven, showing the picture of the disheveled version of the Unwanted, while Blackwood is really sprucing him up so that he can go to the wedding in disguise. But he still gets denied entry to the ceremony because everyone's expecting the very disheveled version of the Uninvited Terror, as opposed to this very clean and sophisticated looking one. So because he got denied entry, he comes back to the reception and kind of declares them all to die because of his refusal. And his identity is revealed when a rogue incubus finds its way into the Uninvited. Instead of being banished out, the terror just absorbs the incubus. Now, this is the incubus that Nick and Melvin were trying to expel from Dr. Cerberus, and instead it jumps into Theo, and then during their performance at the reception, it jumps into Harvey, and then it jumps into Melvin, which then jumped into the Eldritch Terror. So there's that. So the Terror kills Dorian Gray momentarily because he's immortal, but his picture is bloody and bleeding and stuff. But then to kind of like stem him off and to spare Nick from getting killed because he's the one that denied him entry at the ceremony, Sabrina invites the Eldritch Terror to be her +1 to Sabrina Morningstar's wedding in hell. And she conspires with her quote-unquote twin, gets caught by Lucifer, and together the 3 of them devise a plan to trap the Eldritch Terror in a double wedding ceremony that Sabrina Spellman would use to take her new husband into the dollhouse and trap him in there in a place outside of space and time. So then after that, Lucifer, Lilith, Sabrina, Morningstar, Caliban, and that bellhop minion do a binding spell over the dollhouse to contain the Eldritch Terror inside of it. And then Lucifer bans Sabrina Spellman from returning to hell and taking the dollhouse with her because he does not want an Eldritch Terror in his hell realm. So there's that. So let's talk into Sabrina's storyline, because I kind of dropped a lot of bombs there with the fact that we started off with Sabrina's double date with Carl first with Alien movie, and then right afterwards she has the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I think, yeah, she has that date with Melvin, and they both end up with cheek kisses, and she feels not the spark she was hoping for between the 2 dates. So there's that. We also see her talking with Queen Sabrina about the 2 dates, and then she finds out more about Queen Sabrina and Caliban planning to get married later on in the week, and how Lucifer is supportive of the union, but Lilith is hesitant, kind of worried about her unborn son, kind of a thing. So there's that. But then that leads to Lilith teaming up with Sabrina Spellman after finding about the whole time paradox thing, and they conspire to break up Morningstar with Caliban. So Spellman then meets up with Caliban at the academy. He's very flirty and hands-on with her, with who he thinks is his fiance. But Spellman tries to get him to make a sacrifice and convert to worshipping Mother Hecate. He leaves to think about it, but he eventually returns to his actual fiance in hell and gives her the offering that was originally asked of him from Spellman. So instead of driving a wedge between Morningstar and Caliban, it actually brought them together and proved to Morningstar that Caliban has changed and he's willing to do what needs to be done for the 2 of them, which is not what Spellman wanted, but it reassured Morningstar that she is about to marry the man that she's crazy about. So that's something there. But then, because of this, we see Spellman getting drunk at Hilda's wedding reception as she gives the speech. And then the whole proposing to the uninvited at Morningstar's wedding. So there's that. They are partake in a double wedding where she gets stuck marrying the Terror. And then we see Caliban and Morningstar happily getting married, kissing for the first and hopefully not the only time we see it. And this fabulous drop down type of a gesture as they're bonded together. I love that. But anyways, there's that, and then we lead to the banning of Sabrina Spellman and what have you and all that. So there's that. There's a lot that happens, but just because we get the two different Sabrinas. But I think, did I mention it? But we also got it in this episode where Sabrina, the queen, confirming that she's happy. She made her own happiness, and she tells Sabrina Spellman, the witch living in the mortal world one, to just make her own happiness. Don't just, like, if she's not happy with what she's living with right now, then do her own thing, kind of. So that's something there. Let's move on to the Academy. So the Academy storyline is the fact that, well, we kind of touched upon it, but Zelda had recruited Nick and Melvin to get rid of the Incubus and Dr. Cerberus, which then jumps to Theo and to avoid dealing with the wrath of Lady Hecate. But also, while that's being taken care of, Zelda is trying to help Hilda with the final arrangements for the wedding, as Zelda, being the high priestess of the coven of Hecate, is meant to officiate the wedding. So that's something there. Then we get into the Blackwoods, Father Blackwood's storyline. So this one we get Father Blackwood and Agatha learning from Miss Wardwell of Hilda's engagement and also upcoming wedding. So they use that to their advantage, and they set the Eldritch Terror onto her. But also they kind of act as, I don't know, they kind of still speak as if like their activity as witches are still known, even though it's Miss Wardwell and not Lilith. So that's something there. Anything else I've already mentioned? Oh, we do get, before the Eldritch Terror goes to the wedding, he blesses Father Blackwood with a piece of his own flesh, which Father Blackwood consumes. And then when we see Father Blackwood again later on, we see him getting weird visions, kind of similar to what Roz got when she touched the uninvited in her cunning touch. And we see him making reference to the third Eldritch brother, which is Brother Weird, and fast approaching, which with a bunch of images of like tentacles and kind of like an octopus, but I'm thinking it's kind of be something similar like a kraken or something. But here's the thing. Father Blackwood was acting like kind of drugged out when he was talking about this, which had me really fearing that he was just about to turn into the tentacle terror, which I really hope is not the case, because I didn't want him bursting out in tentacles. Like, he kind of acted as if he was about to take on this new form, and I was like, please don't do it, please don't do it, please don't do it. So that was the whole thing there. But the last scene of the episode shows Sabrina realizing that her counterpart in hell is happy with her own happiness, happy to be married to Caliban. And then she gets her own idea when she looks at the candle that has Harvey and Nick's name carved into it when she did the candle cut spell. She gets the idea of making her own happiness that includes a mix of Nick and Harvey, because she talked about earlier how she just needs a guy that had parts of Harvey and parts of Nick to it. And so I think she might be building herself her own boyfriend, which we'll talk about later. So that's something. But tidbits, though, here's something funny I noticed. Harvey has an Archie comic book poster in his bedroom. And I'm thinking, how does that make sense? Right? I don't know. That's too meta. I didn't even think we were going to go meta for this. I don't know. So that was something I noticed. Also, we find out that Hilda wanted a very small wedding, family wedding, where the guests got to dress up as their favorite movie monster characters, which she eventually did get by the end of it. So she got her wedding with the coven, and then she got her own little ceremony that she originally wanted, where we got to hear the vows being exchanged. So that was something there. We also find out that Hilda is at least 160 years old. So they definitely do not age the same as mortals. So that's something there. But let's move on to ship status, or relationship status. Again, we still see Harvey and Roz. We do see Theo and Robin a little bit more, especially when Theo is being possessed by the incubus. Again, we have to see Hilda and Dr. Cerberus because it is their wedding. But then we also do see, Queen Sabrina and Caliban because it's their wedding, but we also see a little bit of Witch Sabrina and Caliban when she's trying to break them up a little bit. But I guess it's kind of a reflection of what the real relationship is between them because of how things didn't work out in the fake one. So there's that. Most shocking moment of the episode. The fact that it was a double wedding. The fact that Sabrina and Caliban were getting married to begin with was a shock. So I thought that was moving very quickly, and something I only thought was just a mere idea when it was first brought up in 306? 306, right? I gotta check my note. Yeah, 306, right? Right? Yes, 306. Yeah, I was referring back to my episode 3 notes. So that was only like something like fan fiction, but we actually got a wedding. We actually got them saying I do. We actually got them kissing to make it official, and I was just like, I'm shocked. And then also adding the fact that we also got Sabrina marrying the Eldritch Terror, that was a shock in a different level as well. But that was something there. So there's that. Now moving on to top favorite moments. First one, I will have to say, I'm surprising this. Well, I'm actually not surprised at first. But it was that very sweet moment that we got with Aunt Hilda with Sabrina. So sweet right before the wedding. Hilda was comforting Sabrina about how she feels alone more so than ever. And then Hilda was just, of everybody, Hilda had the right words. And it was just like a true moment. And I feel like we haven't had many between the two of them lately. So I'm much appreciated for that. And then we get into my next favorite. And if you haven't guessed already, it's Sabrina and Caliban. On many different levels. Because we have the fact that we have Queen Sabrina and Caliban. And the way that they are at the wedding. Their smiles at each other. The way that Sabrina talks about Caliban. And then also when we got to see Sabrina Spellman trying to pretend to be Sabrina Morningstar when she was seeing Caliban at the academy. Seeing the way he is around her was just something as well too. It's like it's just like I kind of wish that we got to see the progression of how they got to that point, but it was just to see like this huge, they've come such a long way kind of a thing. And then of course their kisses together is just like, yes, it's just like something like I probably only would have saw in fan fictions back in January, February, March when I first watched season 3 and they first introduced the idea of Sabrina and Caliban together. But yeah, just seeing all the different parts of their dynamic in this episode. And then the fact, like, for me, it was also just hearing what Caliban, like, he was saying, like, he had all these plans that he wanted to have with Sabrina. And she was just all about this sacrifice for the test. And then he ultimately came through and actually gave the sacrifice she wanted. So it just showed that he really wanted this future with her. So it really said for something deeper. So I really like that. And then another favorite is the fact that we got to see the vows between Hilda and Dr. Cerberus when they had the small, intimate exchange the way they wanted it when everyone in costume. And then Zelda's reaction to it was just so sweet as well. She got very emotional for it, and it was just like, so glad we got to see that part of their wedding for sure. So cute. Now, if we move to top peeved moments, small part because it backfired, but the fact that the idea that Sabrina Spellman wanted to conspire with Lilith to break up Sabrina Morningstar and Caliban, it was a peeve in the moment just because I did not like the fact that Spellman was pretty much trying to take control of a life that really she had no claim over anymore, especially when she literally created time paradox so she can live 2 different lives. So it felt like it wasn't her place to put that wedge between Morningstar and Caliban, but I really love the fact that it backfired and it kind of just proved Morningstar's point even more that Caliban had changed. So I'm glad it helped in their favor. But another peeve I did have was Sabrina's drunk toast during the wedding reception. That was full-on secondhand embarrassment for me. Like, I was cringing as the whole thing was. I really just wanted to pause and just, like, go back to, like, my other work and be like, I don't want to see this embarrassment. This is just, like, horrifying. If I was at that reception, it'd be like, I'd try to find a way to excuse myself so I wouldn't have to watch this train wreck happening. So, yeah, that was just a peeve. And, like, I understand why with Sabrina's mindset, but it's just, like, that's not something I want to see. It's just, like, purposely embarrassing. No, like, don't. So that's something there. And it's a very, very, well, I'll bring up the other peeve in my random questions, which we'll get into right now. So my first random question is the fact that during the wedding ceremony in hell, I'm wondering why no one was questioning the fact that there were two Sabrinas present at the queen's wedding. Like, why was no one questioning the fact that there was a Sabrina? First of all, at the very end, why were there two Sabrinas getting married at that wedding? Like, it wasn't even a fact like one of them was in disguise and then they got figured out. She was literally there as Sabrina. And I'm like, why is no one questioning that? So that was a question there. And then my other question is, which is tied into the small peeve, was, is this the last time we're going to see Queen Sabrina and Caliban? Because with Lucifer's ban of Sabrina Spellman, because I'm pretty sure we're going to be staying on Sabrina Spellman, and with Lucifer's ban for her not to come into hell anymore, does that mean, and to never see Queen Sabrina again, does that mean I'm never going to see Calbrina, the royal Calbrina? Is that not, like, I feel cheated if that was the case, because, like, I literally just got them. I mean, you already cheated me of the progress, because I always love the journey, not necessarily of the couple, like, already being together, because usually in order to create drama, you have to put a wedge between an already established couple. But it's usually the journey to get them to being a couple is always the fun part. And I feel like you cheated me of that. So that's like, if you cheated me of how Queen Sabrina got to be close to the point where she wanted to marry Caliban, the least you can give me is seeing Queen Sabrina and Caliban together. Like, don't cut me off now. Like, I really hope that Lucifer's ban is not the last I'm going to be seeing of them. But also, I'm also just realizing there is a moment in the season 4 trailer of Caliban, and pretty much with a member of the Hordes of Hell, I think Beelzebub, which I don't think I've seen yet in this 2 episodes. So hopefully we'll be seeing Caliban again. But, like, I can't not have Calbrina. Because, like, there's a part of me that's like, well, I kind of wish it was Witch Sabrina with Caliban, because you have the whole contrast, and, like, that would have been fun seeing them progress into something more. Kind of like I wish that I got to see Sabrina Spellman being at odds with Caliban and then slowly worming her way to becoming Sabrina Morningstar's view of Caliban, where she'd want to marry him. You cheated me of that. At least give me something. But yeah, like, on the one hand, I got to see what they could be, but then, like, you cut out the middle portion. And I'm going to leave it at that, because I'm getting very tired now that I'm watching the clock. So, last thing we're going to talk about is predictions. So, what do I think is going to happen in episode 3 onward? So, we know that each Eldritch Terror is going to take up a focus for each episode. So, we got 6 more left. We also know that Father Blackwood has been blessed by the second terror. So, he's either going to act like a prophet, where he's going to, like, prophesize the next terror or coming, or he's going to be the introduction for it. I just really hope he doesn't turn into one of the terrors. I don't think so, or he doesn't become a vessel for one of them. Because I swear, if he transforms into that octopus thing, I'm going to be like, I knew it, but then I'm going to be like, ugh, like, I don't want to see that. I hate those kind of transformations. So that's something there. Also, the whole idea of Sabrina, maybe Sabrina Spellman, kind of building her own boyfriend when she says, like, a mix of Harvey and a mix of Nick. That could explain why in the season 4 trailer we saw Nick suddenly in a Baxter High Letterman's jacket. That could explain why, if she were to create her own version of a merger of Nick and Harvey. But then at the same time, I don't want it to just be Nick's face and then Harvey's mannerisms. I kind of would have expected it to be like an actual new actor coming in and then kind of playing off as if they were the love child of Nick and Harvey, you know? But I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of so far. Also, I think that whole sex education thing is going to come back again somehow. And then I'm really hoping we get Calbrina again. Also, it's just funny seeing Lucifer reacting to two Sabrinas, so I kind of want to see that happening again. I also want to see the aunties reacting to that again. Not again, acting to the fact that there's two Sabrinas. I also expect for there to be an issue to the fact that there's two Sabrinas. Like, there has to... I really hope that by the end... It's probably what no one wants to hear. But by the end, because of how terrifying this whole time paradox thing, I kind of hope by the end of this season, which is the end of the series for us, I hope that it results in Sabrina having to ultimately pick between the two lives. Like, she would have to choose between either... Like, one of the Sabrinas will have to go. Or they make a sacrifice. Like, one of them dies to save the other or something. Like, or there has to be a murder, and she would ultimately have to choose if she's going to continue on as queen or if she's going to continue on as her life in the mortal realm. Because I really don't think the series can end with the time paradox still being in play. I really don't. I don't think I'd like that if that were the case. Also, I hope something happens more with Zelda and Mama Murray. There's that. Also, I forgot, they did confirm that Dorcas is actually dead. So, the weird sisters with Agatha and Prudence and Dorcas is long gone. So, forgot about that. So, I'm kind of wondering if we're going to get a reunion of some sorts between Prudence and a somewhat sane version of Agatha. We'll have to wait and see about that. But otherwise, I'm thinking that is probably all the other predictions I have right now. I will find out in less than 24 hours or less than 12 hours when I wake up and continue where I left off with episode 3. But otherwise, guys, what did you guys think of the 2 episodes? What did you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and predictions about all that. By the time this video will be posted, I will probably have already watched all 8 episodes. But as I'm recording right now, it's only the first 2. So we'll see whether or not my predictions are correct or not. And I'm debating whether or not if I should put that in the edit for what you see on screen. Because I will be editing after I've watched all the episodes. So yeah, leave a comment down below about your own thoughts, your own favorites, your own predictions. Love to hear all that, like I've said. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and check out all my other ones in the meantime. Also, if you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I reblog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all the good stuff, all for one place. Go check that out. I think I've started Sabrina. I know it's popped up on my dashboard a few times. I just can't remember if I've reblogged those or if I put them as saved drafts. So I will have to double check. But the link for my Tumblr is down below if you want to follow there. Link for WordPress is again down below as well. WordPress contains anything I post online attached through WordPress. For Tumblr, it has all my Tumblr tags, more organized, more detailed, all found there. So that's something there. And otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for indulging in this long video, because right now it is what? It's like 6:45 in the morning for me right now, and I'm so screwed when school starts up in 2 weeks with the way I've been sleeping lately. But yeah, so stay tuned for the next video for Sabrina. It's going to consider episode 3 and episode 4, and we'll see where this takes us. So guys, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week wherever you are, and have safe time, stay safe during the pandemic, and also it's probably going to be in the new year, so Happy New Year as well. Take care, guys. Bye.